This is just going to be a quick video about the Shard. I'm going to try and do it all in one cut because I don't want to have to edit it. I would want to just upload it straight off my phone. So I'm already rambling, but I might end up rambling a bit and maybe missing some stuff. So this is a Shard designed by Roman at K-Knives Switzerland, and this is so he does a custom build. Well, it's not a custom build, is it? He builds them by hand, but this is his Shard design built, mass manufactured by Linder, and Roman has been closely involved with that process, making sure they do water-cooled grinding and sharpening and getting the heat treat right and stuff like that. So you can find all of the sales pitch information and stuff if you go and look at the knife. So I'm going to kind of talk about stuff that isn't there, or maybe stuff that generally you wouldn't trust reading from a manufacturer, right? So, Bark River would say, they treat 60 to 62 HRC, and that's not trustworthy. So I'll talk about the stuff that generally you wouldn't be able to trust. So the hardness spec for this knife is, I can't actually remember. I think it's 62 to 63. I tested this myself. I'm not going to throw up pictures because I don't want to edit the video. Maybe I'll put a link in the description, an image link so you can see proof. This tested for me between 62.9 and 63.1. So dead on the hardness spec. And this is Nitro X7. And the thickness behind the edge was interesting. So in this area, so the factory sharpening job on this, the thickness behind the edge around here was around 13 thousandths of an inch. As we got up the belly, it progressed to around 18 thousandths of an inch, and then the tip was getting quite thick at about 20 to 25 thousandths of an inch. And now I'm sure, Roman has most likely gone as thin as he thinks he can feasibly go on a mass manufactured knife without idiots breaking it. I saw on Our Knives on Reddit someone who had literally used their knife as a screwdriver, put this in a slotted screw and twisted it and snapped it. So there are complete morons out there buying nice knives and ruining them. So those of you that are watching this that do that dumb shit, you're the reason why we have to have a tip that's 25 thousandths of an inch. So thank you very much for being useless people. So yeah, 13 thousandths of an inch is really great. That's way better than you see on most, I guess Roman probably considers this kind of a utility knife. Maybe with all this belly, it might be good for skinning. I'm assuming this is kind of a utility knife because it's utility knife kind of size. So 13 thousandths of an inch is really great for that. If we compare that, this is a Stiffy P by Kunwu. This is also 13 thousandths of an inch, which really surprised me, but it gets thicker way quicker. Even so, the blade is obviously less broad, and in that distance, it gets way thicker than this one, way faster. And that thin geometry really helps with cut propagation. So you can pretty much get the same sharpness. If this was, let's just say this was 20 thousandths and this was 13 thousandths of an inch, you could pretty much get the same best numbers off of these, but they would cut differently at those same sharpness levels because the thinner edge, the thinner material behind the edge, not at the edge, helps propagate through cuts. It's just easier to push that through material. So this is really good. And with we can't test the microstructure with a hardness test, obviously, and I haven't done edge retention testing. So we can only go as far as to say this is the correct hardness spec, but we don't know how good the heat treatment itself is. Because Roman's been involved, it's probably very good. But if you don't have good geometry, then a good steel is useless. So with, for example, a Falkneven, okay, sure, they don't really do EDC knives, but you could get COS, or there's some other brands. I'm just thinking, Brisa do some LMAX around the same price range as this. It's 170 euros for this, I think. So you can get better steels for this money. But if you don't have that edge geometry, then the better steel is actually worse because it just doesn't cut as well. So I think this is good value for the money. And with that, you get this nice Kydex sheath. The Kydex sheath is much nicer than the Kunwu one. So I don't really like any of these belt clip styles, but this is much better. This weird Tech-Lock rubbish. I mean, at first it looks ridiculous, and it's just bulky and kind of junk. But the Kydex on the Linder is nicer. The edges are finished nicer. The thumb ramp on this is kind of abrupt and sharp. This one's smoothed over nicely. It's a really nice sheath, which I guess most people don't really care that much. If we kind of have a look at the kind of fit and finish on these as well, so the spine on this one deliberately protrudes at the top, and I suspect it's because getting tolerances that feel flush is difficult to manufacture. This is very flush. It's not absolutely flawless. You can feel a little bit of spine protruding on one side and then not on the other, but you don't feel it in hand when you're holding it. You can just detect it if you're being autistic about it and trying to find flaws. So the micarta is finished really nicely. It's very flush and nice. Obviously, it's more bulky than the Stiffy P for a similar size knife, but it's finished nicer than the Kunwu in my opinion, or at least it's finished differently. The Kunwu is finished very nicely with everything's rounded and smooth, but this is flush fitting scales on the spine, whereas this isn't. So it just I don't know. The Kunwu just kind of looks cheaper to me. I much prefer the Shard. One thing, so this is pretty much the last thing I have to talk about. I don't really have much to talk about. Oh, well, yeah, I'll talk about sharpening. So that was the whole thing. I was supposed to talk about sharpening. So Roman sent this to me to then forward on to a bunch of other guys in our sharpening group to kind of assess the heat treatment, so I could give them some feedback on how I thought it was. So I think it's really good. I don't have any experience with Nitro X7. So I don't know how this compares to other Nitro X7 knives, but for me, the main thing with sharpening is how well it deburrs, and I didn't have any problems. And it's difficult to kind of say more than that. It didn't cause me any problems, and I don't have any metrics in order to describe how few problems I had, because there weren't any problems. It deburred nicely. So I actually have one of Roman's handmade shards, which is like basically exactly the same. Well, mine's full flat, this one's sober. And one thing I've always struggled with is sharpening it, because it's such kind of a peculiar shape. It's like all belly and there's no straight. But I've figured it out, and it's really obvious. So this might help some of you. It's barely even a tip. It seems stupid to even say. So with this is obviously a large Gyuto. The way I would usually sharpen would be to kind of do portions of the blade. So I start getting the heel, and as my angle is locked in, I then kind of progress up the blade. And as I get comfortable with like this bottom section and this top section, I then kind of blend the movement into one as I'm comfortable holding those angles. And you just cannot do that with this, because it's so small. You risk kind of like rocking up onto the heel and gouging the stone, although this is already nicely from the factory, kind of like 45 degrees. So the way I find easiest to sharpen this is to do it all in one pass. So it's a really big, like there's a lot of arm and or wrist movement, depending on how you want to do it, to swoop up and get the whole tip. But it's definitely easiest doing the whole kind of shape in one fluid movement like that. If you try and like do sections like this, it's too short and it's too rocky. It just doesn't work. Definitely I would suggest doing it in one fluid motion and just learning the muscle memory for that. And that helped me a lot. So I wouldn't consider that something to worry about. And obviously if you're a fixed system guy, then you've got a flat saber to clamp onto. Just thinking if I've missed anything. I talked about hardness, thickness, deburring, sharpening. Yeah, I think that's it. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick look, because I'm sending this out now to one of the other guys, so I didn't have much more time to kind of spend with it. But I do really like it, and I will be sad to see it go, because I use this to cut all my cardboard. Just while I'm here, will I talk about sharpening stones? No, next video, I'm going to post a video about my own sharpening stones shortly, so yeah, keep an eye out for that.